Hello, everyone. My name is Sam Guilford, and I'm a GIS cartographer with the National Geographic Society. And my presentation is visualizing 60 years of glacial change in the Khumbu region. As part of National Geographic's ongoing research in the Everest region of Nepal, we have been collaborating with a team of glaciologists at the University of St. Andrews, led by Dr. Tobias Bolch. The rest of the team is Owen King and Atanu Bhattacharya. And they've been doing some amazing research using historical satellite imagery and aerial photographs dating back to the 1960s to create digital elevation models and delineate glacial extents so that they can look at glacial change over time in the region. And the first paper that's going to come out of this research is still in review. So I won't get into the details of the research too much, but I'm going to show you some visualizations that I made using the time series of digital elevation models and the glacier extents in an oblique map view. So I'm going to show you some of the data sets that were used in this research. The first data set is from 1962, and it's derived from declassified Corona spy satellite imagery. And it was originally at 7.6 meter resolution, but everything was resampled to 10 meters for the study. And the background here is the elevation model run through Natural Scene Designer. You can see it's pretty chunky in areas. There's some artifacts, some blurriness. It has been edited in Photoshop, but there was a lot of cleaning up that had to be done in ArcGIS and then in Photoshop to get all of the models to work together to really show the change. The second timestamp is from 1970, and this is also using declassified Corona imagery. You can see there's some streaking there on that mountain face. The third timestamp is from 1984, and this was created using aerial photographs taken during Brad Washburn's mapping work. And this is pretty great imagery and a pretty great model to work with. The year 2000 is surprisingly the worst resolution. This is using Aster satellite imagery that was resampled to 30 meters. And you can see there's a bit of a challenge incorporating this into the other data sets. I'll talk about how I did that. 2009 uses Cartosat imagery, which is pretty great, as does 2018. And so this is the area that we've been looking at, and it's focused on the Imja and Baraon glaciers just south of Lhotse and Mount Everest. And I focused on these areas because they've experienced the most drastic changes in glacial extent and surface elevation and ice volume, according to this researcher that's coming out. But these visualizations that I'm doing are focused on changes in extent. So they're not looking at changes in elevation, and they're not necessarily looking at changes in volume, although you should be able to see some of that. And a large part of this process that I went through was working with and experimenting with the data sets themselves, because it's pretty unique to be able to use data going back to the 1960s. And one of the big challenges is you can see there's a lot of variability in the quality and the resolution of the elevation models. And this is a bit of a limitation, or it's at least a significant consideration to keep in mind when you're using historical imagery or really any data, but especially when you're doing time series, because it's really important that you get everything to line up, especially in this oblique view where you have some glaciers that are occluded by peaks and ridges And really getting all those to work together was a bit of a challenge. So because of that variability, I used this high resolution DEM from 2015 as a baseline, and then masked in the various glacier extents on top using the models for each year. So this is what that looks like. And I turned it into a GIF so you can really see the change over time. And I'm going to let this play through a few times so you can get a sense of what it looks like. And if you look off to the east, you can really see the changes between the various DEMs, which I kind of like. I liked working with the actual, the crudeness of the data at times, because it really speaks to when the data was collected, and that becomes part of the visualization. I think that's pretty neat. So I'll let that play through one more time. And then to highlight some of the most interesting changes, this is a focus on the Imja Glacier. And again, this had some significant changes. This is one of the more well-known glacial change areas in the region. You may be expecting to see the Imja Lake popping out there. Obviously, it's below that 1962 extent there. Or it's underneath the extent that I've masked in. And then this is the other really interesting view here. This is the Baraon Glacier just to the east below Baraon. And these two glaciers were two of the top three most affected glaciers in the region, along with East Rongbuk Glacier just north of Everest. And you can see there's significant changes in extent, but these three glaciers, these two, and then East Rongbuk, had the most extreme changes in ice volume as well. So here is a view of the overall changes from 1962 to 2018. And you can see there's a pretty significant change in extent. And it was really interesting working with these historical data sets and the imagery and wrangling them to get them all to work together so that you could see that change in extent. Entailed some editing in Photoshop and a lot of clipping and masks and stuff like that. So for more details on exactly how the glaciers have changed, especially in regard to surface elevation and glacier mass balance, you'll have to wait for the paper to come out, which will hopefully be this fall. And I want to give a huge thanks to National Geographic Society and Alex Tate and Dr. Bolch's team at University of St. Andrews. Thank you. To give a shout out, I forgot to do this in the video, but I wanted to give a huge shout out to Dan Coe. I don't know if he's here, but I borrowed some visual elements from his awesome Mount Rainier glacier maps. And so I wanted to give him a shout out. And then also Tom Patterson for putting all your 3D tutorials online. That was massively helpful. All right, that's it. Thank you.